Hi, thanks for coming back to my channel. Today is Tuesday, the 4th of February, 2025. This is the sixth video in the 8 Disciplines Problem Solving series. This one is D6, Implement, Verify, and Validate Corrective Actions. If you haven't watched the first 5 videos, I encourage you to go to my YouTube channel at QualityMike84. Now, it's taken me a little longer to get this video done than the others. I started the series to keep busy while I was job hunting, and now I'm busy. I'm in certification training to do third-party quality management system audits to ISO 9001 and AS 9100, and I'm doing PMP, Project Management Professional Certification Training. I'm pretty excited about all of that, especially the third party auditing. And that means if you're in the aerospace quality field, especially in the DFW metro area, I may get to visit you in the next few years when you have your certification audit. So don't wait until then to tell me what you like or didn't like about this video series. Put it in the comments. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My profile ID is one Michael Null. There on LinkedIn, you can go to my booking calendar and request time to meet either virtually or if you're in the northeast suburbs of Dallas in person. I'm still offering to buy coffee if you're willing to let me pick your brain about QMS challenges and successes about your company, or we could just talk. So, like all the steps in the 8D methodology, D6 is critical to your project's success. It really is the proof of the pudding that will show whether you did the prior steps correctly. If you don't have the right team, have the problem properly described, have the true root causes identified, and effective corrective actions, this is where you're going to see it. Now, the entry criteria to begin D6, you will need the list of corrective actions that you came up with in D5. And that includes the detailed descriptions of what you're going to do, the assignee, the due date, and if you follow my recommendations from the Scrum world, a definition of done, the assignee will implement the corrective actions, and once complete, the team lead, the facilitator, or another designated person will do the verification and, if applicable, the validation. Now, the words verification and validation are close in meaning, and they're often used interchangeably, even in the quality field. In this case, when I say verification, I mean to say that you did the corrective action correctly and completely. And when I say validation, I mean to say that the corrective action effectively addressed a root cause and solved the problem. So in D6, you can always verify that you did the corrective action. And if you included a definition of done in your D5 corrective action list, then you have an objective standard to go by to verify the action. And when you verify, make sure you get the objective evidence of that, such as documents, pictures, a description of an observation, even, and save that in your 8D project folder. Now, validation is a little harder, and it depends on the kind of problem and the kind of process you're working on. Now, bear in mind, your 8D team probably has at most 6 months to work on the problem. You don't have infinite resources, and you probably work for a company that wants you to show you're creating value for the money they pay you and your team. If you're working on eliminating a frequently occurring problem or an improvement project on a process that has a cycle time short enough for you to observe the whole cycle from the time you implement the corrective action to the end before you close out the project, then you'll probably be able to validate that corrective action. Ideally, you will have determined whether or not to validate in D5 and included it in a definition of done. On the other hand, if you're responding to, say, an injury or a one time incident, you'd have no way of knowing when to expect another injury or incident to take place. You can verify the corrective action, but if you don't have any more incidents or injuries within the amount of time you observe the process, that doesn't necessarily validate the corrective action, and that may have to be done in the next step. I'll talk about that later. So when it comes to verifying or validating something, you are not always going to determine that it's good. Just like when you're asked to approve something, that implies that you have the authority to disapprove. So the verifier, just like an approver, is not a rubber stamp. And if they were, then this step wouldn't be worth doing. And believe me, it's worth doing. So if you're unable to verify a corrective action, it may be because it just wasn't complete, in which case the verifier just sends it back to the assignee to redo or to complete. Otherwise, it may be that the corrective action the team selected was impractical or impossible. In that case, you and your team will need to determine whether to remove, replace, or adjust the corrective action in order to address the identified root causes. Now, if you're unable to validate a corrective action after it's been verified, then you need to go back further in the project and decide if the root causes were properly identified, if the problem was properly described, or if you had the right people on the team. And this highlights that it's very important to do all the steps, D1 through D4, correctly to avoid having to redo those steps later in the project and putting the project success in jeopardy. In the same vein, it's also possible that in the course of implementing your corrective action, you may find information that you needed earlier in the project. You may have found out that there are hidden factory processes going on, or that some of the problems were covered up, or that there have been changes in the environment around the process that the team wasn't aware of. In any of those cases, you and your team may have to move the project back to an earlier stage in order to effectively address those issues. Another problem that may come up with verification is when someone made a commitment to do a corrective action and for some reason didn't do it. They may have been reassigned, they may have left the company, they may have had other work prioritized above the corrective action, or they or their supervisor may have changed their mind and decided that they're not going to do it. If you find yourself in this position, then you get to exercise your soft skills and negotiate. Remember, project success is their success. And at the end, you want to make your processes safer, more efficient, more effective, and more compliant. That is to say, better for everyone. And who doesn't want that? So, the exit criteria for D6 are you have implemented all the corrective actions identified in D5. You verify the corrective actions, and then you put the objective evidence in the project folder. And if it's been determined or if it's possible, validate the corrective actions and put the objective evidence in the project folder. That's all I've got for D6 for you today. Thanks again for watching my video. And remember, I'm on YouTube as @QualityMike and on LinkedIn as one Michael Null. Remember to help someone today and make all the good things happen. Goodbye.